So Keith Ellison right now leading comfortably as we do the show live in the Attorney General race in Minnesota. It was an interesting decision by him to go run for that race, and part of the reason he did it is because he cares about criminal justice reform, and that's a wonderful way to effectuate that kind of change. And of course, for his troubles, and there's the latest numbers as you see it live. It's just 3% reporting, but good reason to believe with his name recognition and how progressive he is and the state is that he will win that race. So, of course, since he was running, he got smeared again. So what I want to talk about is the smears you don't see that never happen. That's kind of a curious thing to say, right? So you might see stories pop up from time to time and go, well, okay, I'm going to judge it on its merits, and that's that one, and I'm going to be fair, right? So I literally don't even remember the last smear against Ellison. I know that when he was running for DNC chair, they claimed that he liked Farrakhan when he was in college, and that he once used too many diapers as a baby, and probably took somebody's milk when he was in 3rd grade. I don't know, okay? But they threw the kitchen sink at him, and then we get into a nonsense debate about does he still support Farrakhan when he denounced him a long time ago, etc. Then earlier in the night we talked about the fake scandals around Ocasio-Cortez, and then Kanyela Ng running as a progressive in Hawaii. Running against a bunch of lobbyists. One was a private prison lobbyist, the other one was a hotel lobbyist, the others were former Republicans. No bad stories about them. Kanyela Ng, when he was 22 years old and running for office first time, apparently put money in a wrong bank account and then fixed it once, I think 3 hours later, and another time, I think 3 days later. So not 3 days after he got caught, no, 3 days later, back then when he was 22. And they're like, corruption. And then you talk about what is Kanyela Ng corrupt? Well, then he's screwed already. But you manufacture that out of an unbelievably minuscule issue, which he immediately corrected. And I can go on, and there's been so many, Randy Bryce now, how many controversies surrounding him in Wisconsin that we started talking about earlier tonight because he's up for election tonight as well. What I want you to know whenever you see those stories is what are the other candidates who were never investigated? Why did whoever investigated Kanyela Ng in Hawaii as an example, why did they choose not to investigate Ed Case and all the other guys in the race? Or did they? Could the Hawaiian press say, no, really? I mean, we went and dug against all of them, and this is the only thing we found. There is no way that's true. Instead, what happens, and it's normal in politics, is opposition research. And then you plant it with a journalist, or you give it to a journalist, however you want to frame it, right? And I would hope that the journalist would say where they got the story from, but they almost never say that. And I would hope that they would give you context. Now, we were given this story, we were not given the stories about any of the other people running, but they never say that.
I mean, I disagree that they never say it. Frequently they say where it came from, but if it's true, they'll still run the story, and I don't think that really matters. It won't, in the context of how the story would get played and then get repeated and amplified when it's initially run in some paper, then it's out whether the.
So this is unfortunately an institutional disadvantage for progressives, and then an issue for the media that I'm not sure they're even aware of. So it's an institutional disadvantage because Republicans don't mind running smear jobs at all. That's what they've done my whole life in running campaigns. And I knew that even back when I was a Republican, right? And the Democratic establishment apparently rather enjoys it. They've done it in primary after primary. The one they ran against Laura Moser in Texas was my favorite. She once said something bad about another part of Texas, not her district, and a part of Texas that her parents are from. That's the best you could find. But then we were having a debate as to whether Laura Moser hates Texas or not. Now, but what progressives don't do is smear other people because they're generally decent people. And plus, they don't have the budget. Okay, keeping it real.
I think that's, most of the smearing comes from where the money is. That's how, that all costs money. The notion that Republican candidates don't get smeared or caught by journalists, that obviously we know is
no. And by the way, the Democratic establishment also does that from time to time against Republicans. Well, thank God for that. Okay, so I get it, but And in big races, so let's take Roy Moore as an example, because they clearly found opposition research on Roy Moore. I said that during the coverage of it. I gave you the proper context. But you think Republicans weren't looking for stuff on Doug Jones? Oh, they were looking. Apparently they didn't find anything. So in smaller races, that's where you get the bigger disparity. Nobody's paying attention to what's happening in one of the districts in Hawaii, right? So that's where the money guys are going to go and do oppo research on a progressive and bury them. And so I think it's a fair criticism of the media to say that you have to be really, really clear about clarifying where the research came from and how you didn't do it to the other candidates.
Yeah, we do a good
We do have some results. When
okay, a good journalist will not just reflect that in the story, but will take that into account in pursuing the story. Like they get the information and then you. So again, we don't know. Sometimes I'm sure. Hopefully, sometimes it doesn't work. Like you plan it and they're like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not. Obviously, a smart journalist wonders, am I being used to suit someone else's political purpose?
I feel like that's old school, and I'm sure that some people still do that. But I feel like in this day and age, like I got to get the clicks, I got to get the headlines, I got to build my brand. You got a story, I'm running it right away, right? That's my sense of how things are going.
Maybe the desire to win and be first was always there. I mean, it was
sure. Yeah, that's certainly true. So, but last thing on that is, I mean, are you telling me that whoever Laura Moser's opponent was, who eventually won, but I don't remember their name, that person never said anything bad? That there's not a single bad quote they've ever said? Of course there was, and of course if you had spent the money and you dug and you could find quotes that they said about Texas or that district or something else and go, oh, can you imagine what they said? And then we'd be having that debate.
I lived in Texas for more than 5 years. I can say that in my experience, a lot of the parts of Texas don't like other parts of Texas. It's a big state. There's some big differences between them.